even start a podcast?
Well, I don't know.
Podcast!
Let's introduce ourselves,
Okay.
I guess.
Yeah. I am Katie, and I
I'm autistic.
I have autism, depression, BPD. I'm a lesbian as well.
I love you.
You'll go.
My name's Eden. My diagnoses are BPD, depression, anxiety, and then I was wrongfully diagnosed with OCD, but like, yeah, that's the story for another time.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh, I forgot I also have anxiety too. I forgot to add that to my list.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You can't miss out that.
Yeah. That's
So
a big one. Sorry, Karen.
no, it is. With this podcast, I feel like we just want to try and be ourselves and be relatable. Maybe not.
Yeah.
But just, yeah, it's going to give us a platform to hopefully talk about our experiences and like talk about BPD, because I think it's definitely something that's not spoken about enough.
Yeah. And like when it is spoken about, it's spoken about badly.
Yeah.
And like, I know it is bad. It's not bad to have it, but like, I know there are a lot of things that are terrible for the person that is suffering with it. But like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people just automatically think you're crazy and like all these horrible things rather than just being unwell.
They picture the extremes.
Yeah.
It's like, do you remember when you were a kid and you first found out what schizophrenia was?
Yeah.
And I thought it was the most like terrifying thing ever. But now I've got older and like I'm showing the symptoms of schiz. I was like, thought I would be, descending into that.
No, I know what you mean.
It's just,
I just feel like with personality disorders specifically, there's a lot of stigma around it.
Mm-hmm. It's unknown about it. And it's like specifically like when people like think about personality disorders, I think people automatically think of bipolar and like everyone knows what bipolar is. But then when you like branch out to like other personality disorders, not many people have heard of them.
Yeah.
And then like even still, like there's more that I haven't heard of. And like, I mean, I've got the DSM-5 and I have going through that a little bit. So like, yeah, I feel like there's just so much that we don't speak about. And especially with the NHS, how it is, they cater for mental health issues like depression and anxiety, which is amazing because people are suffering and I get that. But it's like I've really struggled getting help for borderline personality disorder. And as well, when I was diagnosed, because like, I mean, it is called BPD, borderline personality disorder, but I think there are other names for it too, like emotionally unstable personality disorder. So when I got my diagnosis, I was diagnosed with EUPD, which is emotionally unstable personality disorder. And I remember speaking to a doctor's one time and I was like, oh, like I have been diagnosed with BPD. And they were like, I can see in your notes that it's like emotionally unstable personality disorder.
Yeah.
And I was like, they're the same thing. And she was like, they're not. And I was like, you're a doctor. And like, I get I'm not a doctor and I'm not medically trained. But like literally everywhere you look is like they're the same thing.
Yeah.
The Mind website and like the NHS website say they're the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's like the fact that even the doctor was unsure of it. It's just,
And also I've found as well, like the second you say that you've got BPD, I feel like it's over for you. Do you know what I mean?
Like, I can't help you.
Yeah. And it's just like, I don't know, like as soon as I was diagnosed when I was about 18, I think, because I think I wasn't officially diagnosed when I was before 18, but when I turned 18, they said that's what I have. And then about a month later, I was discharged from the NHS. What's it called?
Was it Aids and Stevens?
Yeah, but what's it called?
The youth service.
Yeah.
Yeah. Child and adolescent mental health service, something like that.
I feel like as soon as I was diagnosed, I was literally just dismissed and they were like, oh, there's nothing we can do. You're going to be a revolving door patient, which I heard so many times, which basically means you're going to just keep coming back, and then they're going to send you out, and then you're going to keep coming back,
Yeah.
which is actually not very nice, because that's really mean.
It is really mean.
Because like I was really trying, and they were like, no.
Yeah, and it's like, I 100% agree,
Mm.
because no matter how hard you try, like I've been to the doctors like every day for a week sometimes to be
Yeah.
like, I need help, and there's just nothing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like gonna get real dark real quick. But like one of my suicide attempts, like I literally called the doctors the day like I did it and was like, I am at risk, like I can't stop thinking about killing myself, I need
Yeah.
emergency help. And they were like, okay, like we'll speak to the crisis team, like they'll call you back within 4 hours.
Mm.
And it's like, I understand 4 hours is still like a great response, but like I was asking for immediate
Yeah.
help, or like, or even if, yeah, I don't know. And then even then when I spoke to the crisis team 4 hours later, they were like, yeah, you can come in tomorrow.
Yeah.
It was like a Friday, and it was like, you can come in tomorrow. And they were like, is that going to be okay? And I was like, well, not really. And they were like, I'm really sorry, we can't do anything. No.
Yeah.
And then I tried to kill myself. So like,
I know, it's just, I completely understand that the NHS and mental health services and stuff is really like
struggling to keep
struggling.
up with
Yeah,
demand.
I get that. But it's also just not good, especially when you're in such a crisis moment and you can't even get the crisis team to come and help you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's like they're so good at dealing with like depression,
Yeah.
anxiety. And like that's the thing I applied at some point. I'll read them the letter I read you the other day
Yeah.
that I got. Because I didn't even want to go to the wellbeing team, but they were like, you've just got to try. And I was like, I know, but I've been there before. I know exactly what they're going to offer me. And I I self-referred myself to the wellbeing team, and they were like, we can't help you.
Yeah.
They were like, you need someone that's more suited to your problems. What does that mean?
Yeah. And also who? Because there's no one.
Exactly.
Like, there's no one.
I went to the wellbeing team because I spoke to like the mental health worker at the doctors, and they were like, we're not going to refer you to adult services. Go to the wellbeing. So I went to the wellbeing. Oh, we can't help you either. Like, what do they expect?
Yeah.
And so, like, I mean, I've paid for private therapy in the past, and like Katie's paying for private therapy too.
Yeah.
Because it honestly just seems like your only option
Yeah.
at some point.
But it's so expensive. Like, I can barely afford it. And like, there's so many people that can't afford it at all.
Yeah, exactly.
And it just sucks, and it's horrible.
I think we've both had the same experience where we went for private therapy, and they were like, oh, you should be coming every week. And it's like, I can't afford to come every week.
I was like, can we do twice?
Like
every 2 weeks?
Yeah. Because that's, I mean, I don't know how much yours was. I think mine was like 65 quid.
Mine's 60.
For an hour. And it's good, don't get me wrong. It's fucking incredible. And it's so nice to go somewhere and be like, oh, it's like, what can we do to help? And you be like, oh, I don't know. And then be like, this is what we can do.
Yeah.
Whereas the NHS is like, oh, what do you need? What can we do to help? And you're like, I don't know. And they're like, well, we don't know either.
Yeah. Or like, it's one of my last appointments at NHS, and I was probably like 18, I think, around that time anyway. And the week before I'd been in, and I had a very positive attitude for life. I was having a good day. And the next week I went in, and they were like, oh, how's everything going? Like, did you apply for those jobs you said you're going to apply for? And I was like, no, like things have taken a turn for the worst. And they like instantly were like, well, you're not trying, like you could still do all those things. And I was like, you don't understand. Like, I don't want to be alive right now. So like doing these small things, which might help some people, but like for me right now, the main thing I'm concentrating on is keeping myself living, and that's barely working. Do you know what I mean?
And it's so hard to like, I don't know, navigate that with a doctor, because I feel like with BPD, a lot of how we feel in our heads feels like the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
And it's so hard finding the words that will convey that kind of severity, because like you can be telling the doctors, oh, that you're suicidal, but like the words I'm suicidal don't carry the weight of which you
definitely
feel. And it's so hard to like explain that to someone. And it's like, no, like my whole world feels like it's crashing down.
Yeah.
Everything is so overwhelming. I don't even know if I'm real right now.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And
That's just so true. And like, I often, like, when I feel really bad or like suicidal or anything like that, I sort of like feel like everything is on fire and I'm just like watching everything crash and burn around me and everything's falling apart.
And even if nothing is falling apart,
Yeah.
like so many times, like Kane, my best friend who I live with, he'll be like, "What's wrong?" And I'll be like, "Everything's wrong," but literally nothing is wrong. Like he's making me dinner, like he's like cleaning for me. He's like, "Oh, do you need a blanket?" He could literally be catering to my every need, and it's still just like it's such a disconnect.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And I feel like that is really hard to explain to people because it does sort of, I guess, in a way come off as like maybe ungrateful or like you're not trying and like how can you feel this way when your needs are being met and like you're perfectly fine.
And then for me, I then recluse into my head because I'm like, I can't explain that to them because, like you say, I don't want to be ungrateful because I should be okay.
Yeah.
So then I just am like, oh wait, I'm okay. And then I just like sit quietly and get like really introspective and stuff. But it's like, yeah, it's hard because you want to tell them that, but it's just.
Yeah, and I think it's so difficult because, like you said, a lot of it is like in your own head. Like, I'll just be walking around and my inner monologue is just like, you're a fucking idiot. Like, I hate you. Like, you should die. Like, over anything. And it's just like hard to explain that, like, that is what's going on in my head all the time.
And then, like, as well, on the opposite like side, when I'm manic, my inner monologue is insane. And if people are trying to talk to me, and I'm like, I'm sorry, what you're saying doesn't matter. The earth is literally hollow, and there are like creatures called like Vril that are all coming to eat us, and they're all like whatever. So it's like, how do you explain that? It's like today, I convinced myself that I could cure world hunger. I like sat and I like for 30 minutes and I was like, this is a perfect plan.
Yeah.
This plan is like indisputably amazing and I'm gonna like save the world. And then half an hour later I was like, no. Do you know what? I'm gonna start an animal farm or I'm gonna start this podcast. And it's so hard to like keep those connections with people when it's like it's inexplicable what you're feeling.
And I don't know if it's the same, like, because it's not the same for everyone, but I feel like a lot of my BPD comes from like childhood trauma. Not all of it, but like quite a great deal of it, I'd say. So it's sort of like grown up with me as well. So even though like sometimes I'll be thinking a certain way and I know I shouldn't think that way or have to feel that way anymore, but it's like ingrained in my own head. So it's hard to like not go down self-destructive routes when you feel bad or good, actually, because sometimes I'm a bit self-destructive when I feel too good.
But that's like where it like sucks having like BPD and anxiety, because like you were saying, you know that you shouldn't be feeling that way, but then I still go ahead and do those things anyway, but then I just feel extremely anxious about what I'm doing, but I still can't stop myself from doing it. And it's just
it's almost like as well some like not the whole BPD but some part of it a little bit sort of feeds on guilt and shame. So like I'll be like doing something and I'm like, I don't really want to do this. For example, binge eating. I do that sometimes. And I'm like, I don't want to binge eat right now because I know I'll just feel terrible about myself and like guilty and horrible. But I just do it anyway and I can't stop myself from doing it. It's so difficult.
But then it's like I have two minds because one mind is like nothing matters, and so like and then one mind is like everything matters. So like you say, like I'll be like doing something I really don't want to do, and like I'll convince myself that it doesn't matter. But then like as soon as it's over, or even sometimes while it's going on, I'll be like, this does matter. But then, it's just horrible.
Exactly.
And like I mean, we're gonna probably talk more in depth about all of these like symptoms and stuff like in later episodes. It's just like,
Yeah, this is definitely more of a introduction
yeah,
because BPD I feel is so layered
it's so layered.
and there's just so many different aspects to it and everyone
Hmm.
like experiences it differently,
Yeah.
but also the same at the same time.
And as well, like even like the science behind it and all the research coming out about BPD is constantly changing, because it's like when I was first diagnosed, so I'm 25 now, Kay's 24.
Yes.
Brag about it.
Yeah, well, Rachel's 23.
Oh.
Rachel is my fiance, just so you know. I'm gay, I'm a lesbian. We're part of the LGBTQ plus community.
Do you know, when you said fiance, I forgot for a second and I got really excited. And I was, oh my God. And then I was like, yeah, of course I remember. Like,
I'm announcing it on the podcast.
Yeah.
The first episode.
So I was like, I've known for like a year now.
It's nearly 2 years.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that. Weddings are so expensive.
I know. We're not going to have a really expensive wedding.
No. But anyway, what were you saying about Rachel before we got sidetracked?
Oh, yeah, she's 23.
But why were we talking about age?
I don't know. You were saying about you were diagnosed when you were first diagnosed.
So when I was first diagnosed, when I was I think I was just over 18. I might have been 19.
Yeah.
Maybe even I can't remember.
I can't.
But like it was like, oh, there are like 9 main criteria for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've like recently been like looking up on like the NHS website, the Mind website, and like other charities and stuff that support mental health, and the criteria has changed.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure if it like has in like the DSM-5 or whatever when like they're actually diagnosing it, but like it's definitely like evolving.
Yeah.
And as well, like with BPD, a lot of the symptoms overlap with either other mental health conditions or things like autism, ADHD. And I was literally reading earlier, like I'll get proper statistics at some point.
Yeah.
But like so many of the people diagnosed with BPD are misdiagnosed for things like autism, ADHD, PTSD, because the symptoms are so similar.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's like, to be honest, that gets my anxiety. I think to myself a lot of times, like, do I have BPD?
Do you ever like look at the symptoms for other mental illnesses and you're like, why do I have all of these? Like, I should be diagnosed with everything.
Yeah, but I never want to be the one to like self-diagnose.
Oh, no, yeah,
but also, like, I think it is semi-important.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Well, because I was diagnosed with autism in like January, maybe February of this year. And I'd only really considered it for the past 2-ish years. But before then, you sort of have to self-diagnose yourself with it because you think you have it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also, I was just lucky because at the time I was put on the waiting list, they were also, like, the NHS was putting people through privately. So I was literally just so lucky to be selected as one of them people. So that's why, otherwise I'd probably still be on the list now waiting. But there's so many people that can't afford to be diagnosed privately. So in a way you do sort of have to self-diagnose, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially with those type of things.
And as well, like if you, like with like anxiety and depression stuff, if you go to the doctors, they're going to know exactly what you have and diagnose you. So with BPD, I'll go and it'd be like, oh, like what symptoms are you experiencing? And it's like, okay, sometimes I'm delusional. Sometimes I'm very depressed, but also I'm very angry a lot of the time. And basically every emotion that you can feel, I feel every day, at least twice a day.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's so hard. Like we were saying earlier, it's so hard to even explain it in words how you're feeling, that it's like, it's even harder to get diagnosed.
Yeah. And oftentimes as well, I'll like explain how I feel to somebody, and that is how I feel in that exact moment. But then, like, I don't know, the next day, someone will be like, oh, I know you said that you feel like this. And I'm like, no, I don't. I don't feel like that because I don't feel like that then. So it's hard for me to remember how I felt yesterday because even though I can think, oh, I felt happy yesterday, but I can't actually really remember how I felt yesterday. So I always think that my BPD is just like a walking contradiction of itself because every thought I have is contradicting with another thought that I have, with another thought, with another thought. And everything is so confusing and a big ball of mush. And every day I wake up and I wish I was dead. That's one thing that is consistent. I open my eyes and I'm like, oh my God, no.
Yeah, not another day.
Yeah.
Especially like recently, it's been so grey outside.
Yes.
And I just keep waking up and I'm like, this can't be it. This can't be it a day.
I know. Or I always like, recently I've had this a lot where I have quite a good day, like I'm quite productive and stuff. And then the second I get home, I'll be like, I can't believe I have to do this again tomorrow. Like, I've done so much today and I've got to do so much again tomorrow. And then I start feeling depressed about it.
Yeah, that's
It sucks.
what really gets to me about
Same.
life, is it just never stops.
I know.
And I find myself like waiting for something to keep myself like excited, like, which can't lie, is usually a takeaway.
Yeah, same.
Sometimes I'll be like, oh, I'm getting Chinese on Friday, and then I get really excited. Then my whole week revolves around getting to Friday to get that Chinese, and then when it's over, like, you've just waited that entire week doing nothing but waiting for a Chinese, just because everything else is so hard.
Yeah.
And if not, like, there's no way I can like get through the day. I hate when people are like, just take it one step at a time, day by day, second by second. It's like, no.
Yeah.
No, I can't. I wish I could. I wish I could be Zen or whatever, but I just can't.
Exactly. And you know how people always say, like, in the motivational quotes and stuff, it's like climbing up a mountain. I feel like it would be easier to climb a mountain because I could just take one step and then I could rest and like have a vape and just like chill out. And then I'd take another step. And I feel like it's not the same when you apply that to life, because I can't just like drive down the road and then pull over. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
I mean, you could.
I could. But like, there's so many things that like don't apply to that. And yeah, living second by second, but every second I live is agony.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm on fire.
Mm-hmm. It's just really hard sometimes.
It is.
I feel like we've got to 23 minutes. I'm pretty proud of ourselves. I think we should also explain like specifically what BPD is.
Yeah.
So like, or even like your experience with it. It's like, for me personally, when I talk about BPD or explain it to someone who's never experienced it, like, I always go to it's like bipolar but quick.
Yeah. Literally.
And instead of like the intense like mania and the intense depression, like, it's very rare I get that intensity of stuff. It's a bit milder, apart from the depression. But like the mania is a lot milder, like, and like it's a lot more emotional. I think than bipolar, you're experiencing a lot more emotions. You can 1 minute be on the brink of suicide and the next minute like remember about your Nintendogs.
Yeah.
And like be like, I've got to get DS right now.
Literally. Like a few weeks ago, I was literally crying to Rachel and being like, I hate everything. And then I remembered that on Heyday, which is an app on iPhones and Androids, I imagine too. This is not an ad.
You're like, please sponsor us.
Yes, please do. I love Heyday. It's a farm game. And I remembered that my boat was in and I had to fulfill the orders on the boat. And then I was instantly fine. And I was just like, how can I be like literally crying, like tears, that I couldn't breathe? And then I was like, oh, my boat's in.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And it's so exhausting.
It is. And I think that's also how it is. Another like reason why it is different to bipolar is with bipolar, you're in an episode you can be in it for weeks or even months. Whereas with BPD, it can change in a second.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And sometimes I will have like depressive episodes and manic episodes where like for like 6 months, I would say I'm overall happy. I'll still experience the emotions, but like more so I'll be experiencing mania. It's like I'll probably again get into this another time, but like Hollow Earth, I convinced myself it was real for like 8 months and then tried to convince my mum and like
and disappointed her.
And I disappointed her. And like I'm so Yeah. I don't really know how to go from here now.
It was a whole thing. I remember you telling me about it, and I was like, okay.
But then, like, I had some friends who were actually listening to me and being like, "You're right," which wasn't helping the delusions at all. Yeah. But I mean, it's fun, and it's compared to some of my other manic episodes, that's pretty harmless.
Yeah.
It's not like, you know, spending like 400 to 500 quid on podcast.
That is true. Although, I feel like this is probably one of our greatest hyperfixations.
And we're actually carrying it.
I know. I can't believe we actually
I
are.
can't believe we're doing this.
A few weeks ago, when we first planned all of this, I did not think we were going to get to this stage. I wanted us to, but in my head, I was thinking, like, this ain't going to last.
Same.
But it has.
Because, like, as well, like, the other day I was like sitting here and I was like looking at podcast stuff. And then I stopped for a minute and then I got an idea for a book that I wanted to write. And then I wrote like, it was like 500 words in a book. And then I was like, okay, back on podcast.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not too sure why people with BPD have hyperfixations.
I don't know either, because I think mine is possibly due to maybe autism, but I'm not sure. Because I have special interests, which are sort of like hyperfixations, but they're like long-term ones that I've always loved.
I do too.
Yeah, maybe you're autistic too. But then I feel like as well, a lot of people who are ADHD have hyperfixations, and I also do think I have ADHD. However, I'm not on the waiting list yet, but I might go on it. But I'm not sure. But anyway, that's
it for another
time. But yeah, I've had a lot of hyperfixations, and I know you have too. And we've had a lot together as well.
We have.
Like the album we were going to write.
Hey, I have 3.5 songs in it.
Are you? I didn't know this.
Yeah, I know. It's because they're just lyrics. And also, one of them isn't really a song, and I can't figure out how to put it to music. But it's just like... I don't know. It was a conversation between me and God asking him why he's like this.
Why are you like this?
I'll release that another time.
Maybe we can release it on the Patreon.
No, we should not release it.
I don't even have a Patreon. Maybe we will in the future.
Well, because next episode we want to talk more in depth about hyperfixations. If we get to a next episode. So like, yeah, I'll do some research on why we actually have them.
That'll be good. And we can also talk more about the hyperfixations we've had, because we've had a lot.
Yeah.
I've been through nearly every single hobby there is.
Same. But the thing is Katie is amazing at art. You are, and you're good at music. So like, you could go into a hyperfixation and like, you're pretty fucking good. Whereas like, I'm not.
No, don't say this.
You're always so nice to me.
You are good at stuff.
What?
There are lots of things that you're
like,
good at.
I'm not denying, like, I'm mediocre. I'm not good. And no one would ever tell me I'm good, apart from you, because you're nice. But I enjoy it, and like, I understand that I don't have to be good at it. But it's like, you are amazing at like, and art specifically. And that's not even a hyperfixation with you, I feel like.
Yeah, I've always liked crafty stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like with art, I do go through hyperfixations of different types of art and stuff, if you know what I mean. So I've done knitting, I got halfway through a scarf.
I know.
It just had a couple of holes in it because I kept dropping the stitch, but that's fine. Scrapbooking.
Yeah.
I still go back to that every now and again because I love a scrapbook. Do you know what I mean?
I like the idea of a scrapbook. And when I was a kid, I tried to make many. But then I'd only ever fill in the first page. And then, like, I'd never do more.
Yeah.
Or, like, this one time, like, I actually did. Do you know what, right? This is probably the worst time for it. I'm having a lot of realizations right now about my childhood. And, like, maybe some, like, tendencies that I'd forgotten about. Because I used to have a lot of hyperfixations as a child as well. But like, and like I'd always like start writing a book and then I'd like stop.
Yeah.
And then I'd just move on to the next one. But I just thought that was like normal.
I also thought that was normal, but I don't think it is.
Then you got diagnosed with autism.
I know. But then the funniest thing is, like, when I first told my mum about how I thought I was autistic, she didn't think I was. And then she was like, no, like, you're just, you know, you're happy to play on your own and like just listing all these symptoms of autism. And I was just like, yeah. But as it went on, my mum was like, oh yeah, like you did used to do a lot of stuff like quite repetitively. You used to watch Shrek on DVD or video actually at the time. Press rewind when it had finished and then play it again and watch it again over and over and over again.
I do that as an adult.
So you did that with Sing as well.
Oh my god, don't. I love Sing.
It is a real good movie.
It doesn't have to be that good. It's just
so
singing
good.
animals. It's just, oh god, I love that movie.
Is it still on Netflix?
I think they put it back on Netflix because it was on, right? And then they took it off, and then I sent an email.
I know you did.
Basically just being like, this is an outrage. I can't believe you've done this to me. It's not on the illegal site that I stream on. Put it back on Netflix. And then like 3.5 years later they did. So like maybe my email had something to do
I
with
think
that.
your email swayed it, I think.
Yeah, they got it 3.5 years later.
They were like, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah.
Put it back on.
And then they put Sing 2 on as well, so...
Yeah. But you're not a big
I like to
fan.
think... No, I'm not the biggest fan, but I do like to think that Netflix listens to me. And that everything they do for me.
Yeah.
Even though I know that's not true, because they've cancelled a lot of shows that I like.
Yeah. They do that a lot. It's very sad.
It's so sad.
But yeah, I definitely want to talk more about our hyperfixations. I feel like we could talk about it for ages.
But yeah, it might even be 2 or 3 episodes.
It might have to be spread over.
The list can go on.
Yeah.
But I'm so excited that we've actually executed this.
Yeah.
And I think we should probably round it up now.
Yeah.
For the first podcast. But it's been exciting.
It has. It's not as awkward as I thought it would be, actually.
It's not as awkward as I
It was
thought.
at first.
It was. And I want to apologise in advance for the start of this podcast. I will also post a apology on Instagram.
Yeah, you should.
I should.
A notes app apology, like the famous people do when they've done bad things. Yeah. But I think it was going to be awkward because I feel like you can't start a podcast and it be good.
And especially because like the topics that we want to talk about, like it is going to be quite vulnerable.
Yeah.
As well. So like at times like it may be awkward for us to talk about it. But yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited that we've got this done.
Same. And I think it is good to be vulnerable, especially about BPD in particular, because there isn't much about it online. You don't really hear about it, and when you do, it's bad stuff. So, like,
yeah.
Not that we're, like, being like, yay, BPD or anything, but, like, you know, we're just being honest.
Well,
bye.
Bye, I guess. Until I was snoring. I think I did snort.
Were you about to say until next time?
Yeah, I was.
I thought you were.
Then, why? Why would I say that?
Well, yeah. So next time don't end it yet.
I'm not gonna end it yet.
I haven't finished my piece.
I'm not gonna end it yet.
So yeah, next time we'll talk about hyperfixations.
Yeah.
And probably more about BPD. But this is just
our pilot.
Our pilot episode and introduction.